So last month, a letter was sent from FinCEN to Ron Wyden. He's a senator on the Finance Committee, and he had asked some questions of FinCEN about how it could regulate the ICOs and what was going on in the cryptocurrency market. So in response, FinCEN sent a letter to Ron Wyden, and it discussed a number of different things about how it supervises BSA, the Banking Secrecy Act, and AML, which is anti-money laundering areas of the law. And one thing that came out that is, I think, really interesting to a lot of our clients is towards the end of the letter, which I have here, it says that generally a developer that sells convertible virtual currency in exchange for another type of value is a money transmitter and must comply with AML. So that's concerning because there's a lot of people in the industry who have done ICOs. They've done initial coin offerings. They went out and sold them, but they didn't register as an MSB. And so we've been getting a lot of questions from people who are now in that circumstance or are thinking about going out and doing initial coin offerings about just what this letter means. So this letter doesn't really represent a new rule. In fact, it's neither new nor is it a rule. It's actually just a communication from the Department of the Treasury to a senator. So it doesn't have the force of law. It doesn't even have the force of a regulation. But it does mean that that's the position that FinCEN is taking now, and that means a lot because it means if an issue ever comes up either before FinCEN or before a court, it's likely the position that the government would take as to whether or not somebody who sold tokens in an initial coin offering was a money services business and therefore was required to comply with all the rules that apply to money services businesses. So FinCEN, which is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, their main concern is that criminals are going to make use of the U.S. banking system to take proceeds of criminal activities. So, they sell drugs, they get money, and they're going to take that money and use the financial system of the United States to hide it, both to hide that they committed a crime and to prevent the government from capturing those proceeds and taking them back. Either if it's a proceed of a drug crime, maybe just taking it back. If it's something they stole from some third party, like in a fraud, the government will take it and give it back to that victim. So FinCEN works with banks to ensure that this doesn't happen. So if criminals take the proceeds of their criminal activity and send it through the bank's required to register as a money services business, and they have hire people to make sure that money laundering isn't occurring in their bank. What FinCEN is concerned about is that what's happening is criminals might be using ICOs in order to launder the proceeds of their criminal activity. So if you steal money from someone and then you take that money that you stole and you buy coins in an ICO, and those coins are then sent to another location or another party, that can conceal what happened to the money and where it went. It can make it hard for FinCEN to track the value that was transferred through that ICO, and that could potentially allow criminals to take the proceeds of their criminal activity and to disguise them or keep the government from recapturing them by participating in the initial coin offering. Companies that are thinking about doing an ICO should think first of all about whether or not their initial coin offering will transform them into a money services business. Because it's not the case that every single ICO transforms the company doing the ICO into an MSB. You can certainly sell tokens in a variety of ways where it doesn't require registering as a money services business. However, if you do an ICO that does transform you into a money services business, and this letter certainly indicates that at least some people at FinCEN think that most ICOs fall into that category, the question then becomes, how are you going to respond? One thing that you can do is change how the ICO is done. For example, not selling to people inside the United States, even in some instances, changing the functionality of the platform or the coin that's being sold can have an impact on whether or not that sale transforms the company into a money services business. Then the third question is, if you decide that you don't want to transform how you do business to avoid becoming a money services business, you have to register. So that process isn't that difficult. But once you have registered, there are a number of other requirements that can be more difficult to implement, especially for small companies that are very good at doing cryptocurrency but aren't used to doing more anti-money laundering type activity. So you have to draft an AML anti-money laundering policy. You have to report certain things such as filing suspicious activity reports. And if you're willing to comply with all of those things, it's perfectly fine to do an initial coin offering, register as an MSB, and comply fully with the regulations. So one thing to keep in mind when you're reading this type of letter is it's using all types of legal terminology that are very new to people in this space. And it's even possible to read the terminology that's being used by FinCEN and think, well, that's definitely not something we're doing. In fact, that was something that almost everybody in the industry did initially. They read the description of what a money transmitter was, and they said, well, we're not transmitting money. There's no way it applies to us. But then subsequently, FinCEN issued guidance that indicated, no, in fact, they think that many times that somebody's operating as an exchange and is sending a cryptocurrency from one location to another location, or just exchanging it for fiat currency or for another cryptocurrency, that constitutes becoming an MSB. In addition, even after those interpretations have come out, there's a lot of ambiguity. And so even lawyers who are familiar with this area often have strong disagreements about how to interpret the regulations and how they can apply to new types of companies, and in particular cryptocurrency companies. So it's very important before any company initiates an initial coin offering to consult with counsel and ask about whether or not there's anything they're doing that could require them to register as a money services business with FinCEN.